was performing a demonstration for a group of students, executing a complex technique that required perfect timing, precise movement, and absolute mental clarity. As I began the technique, something extraordinary happened. Time seemed to slow down. Every movement became crystal clear. I could feel every muscle fiber engaging, sense every shift in balance, predict every reaction. But it wasn't just physical awareness that heightened. My entire being was present in that moment. Just this one perfect moment of complete focus and total presence. And in that moment, I understood something profound. This is what it means to be fully alive. Most people go through life only partially present, only partially focused, only partially engaged with what they're doing. They're physically in one place, but mentally in another. They're going through the motions while their real attention is scattered across a dozen different concerns. But when you learn to bring laser focus to whatever you're doing, you don't just do it better. You experience it more fully. This principle applies to everything in your life. When you're having a conversation with someone you care about and you give them your complete, undivided attention, not only does the quality of the conversation improve dramatically, but you also experience a deeper connection, a richer interaction, a more meaningful moment. When you're working on a project that matters to you and you focus on it completely without allowing your mind to wander to other concerns, not only does your work improve, but you also enter a state of flow where time disappears and you feel most authentically yourself. When you're spending time in nature and you focus fully on the sights, sounds, and sensations around you, instead of thinking about your problems or your to-do list, not only do you appreciate the beauty more deeply, but you also feel more connected to something larger than yourself. This is the secret that changes everything. Focus isn't just a tool for achievement. It's a tool for living. The successful warrior is the ordinary man with laser focus, not just because focus leads to success, but because focus leads to a more vivid, more authentic, more fulfilling experience of being human. But I want to be completely honest with you about what developing this level of focus requires, because I don't want to mislead you into thinking it's easy or that it happens quickly. The path to laser focus is challenging, demanding, and sometimes lonely. There will be times when you want to give up, times when the effort seems too great, times when you question whether it's worth it. I remember periods during my training when the discipline required felt overwhelming. Friends would invite me to parties, and I would stay home to practice, and I would stay home to practice. Others would take shortcuts, and I would continue doing things the hard way. There were moments when I wondered if I was missing out on life, if I was being too rigid, if I was sacrificing too much for my goals. But here's what I learned through those difficult periods. Every moment of focused effort is an investment in your future self. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, focus over distraction, purpose over pleasure, you're not sacrificing your life. You're building a better life. You're developing capabilities that will serve you forever, creating possibilities that wouldn't exist otherwise, becoming someone who can handle whatever challenges life presents. The warrior path isn't about denying yourself all pleasure or becoming some kind of machine-like perfectionist. It's about making conscious choices about where to invest your most precious resource, your attention, It's about understanding that you can't do everything, so you must choose carefully what deserves your focus. Think about the great masters in any field. The master pianist doesn't just play music. They are so completely focused on their craft that they discover possibilities within it that others never see. The master chef doesn't just cook food. They are so deeply focused on the art of cooking that they create experiences that transcend mere eating. The master teacher doesn't just share information. They are so focused on the growth of their students that they inspire transformations that last a lifetime. This is what becomes possible when you combine ordinary human ability with extraordinary focus. You don't just get better at what you do, you transcend the normal limitations of what people think is possible. You enter a realm where your focused attention becomes a kind of magic that transforms not just your results, but your entire experience of being alive. Now, let me share with you a practice that will begin transforming your focus immediately. I call it the 20-minute transformation, and it's based on a simple but powerful principle. You can train your focus just like you train your body, through consistent, progressive practice. Starting tomorrow morning, I want you to choose one thing that matters to you, one skill you want to develop, one goal you want to achieve, one area where you want to see improvement. For the next 30 days, you're going to give this one thing 20 minutes of completely focused attention every single day. But here's the crucial part. During those 20 minutes, that one thing is the only thing that exists in your universe. No phone, no interruptions, no multitasking, no distractions of any kind. Just you and your chosen focus area, engaging with the intensity of a laser cutting through steel. If you choose to focus on your physical fitness, then for 20 minutes you exercise with complete presence and attention. If you choose to focus on a creative skill, then for 20 minutes you practice that skill with total concentration. If you choose to focus on building a business, then for 20 minutes you work on your business with undivided attention. 20 minutes might not sound like much, but here's what I discovered through decades of practice. 20 minutes of laser focus is worth more than hours of distracted effort. 20 minutes of complete concentration will accomplish more than an entire day of scattered activity. 20 minutes of purposeful practice will create more progress than weeks of casual dabbling. But the real transformation happens not just in those 20 minutes, but in what those 20 minutes teach you about your own capabilities. Teach you about your own capabilities. You'll discover that you can concentrate more deeply than you ever imagined. You'll realize that your mind is far more powerful than you thought. You'll experience what it feels like to be completely present and fully engaged with what you're doing. And here's the beautiful part. As you develop this focused attention in one area of your life, it begins to spread to other areas automatically. The concentration you develop during your 20 minutes of practice becomes available to you throughout your day. The mental discipline you build in one domain transfers to every other domain. After 30 days of this practice, you'll understand what I mean when I say that the successful warrior is the ordinary man with laser focus. You'll have direct personal experience of how ordinary ability becomes extraordinary through the power of concentrated attention. You'll know, not just intellectually, but in your bones, that you already have everything you need to achieve remarkable things. But remember, this is just the beginning. 20 minutes a day for 30 days will give you a taste of what's possible. But true mastery, true transformation, true warrior consciousness requires a lifetime commitment to the path of focused development. It requires the courage to keep going when others quit, the discipline to stay focused too, pardon when others scatter their attention, the wisdom to know that extraordinary results come from the accumulation of ordinary efforts applied with extraordinary consistency. As I sit here sharing these words with you, I'm reminded of something I wrote many years ago. I am not afraid of a man who has practiced 10,000 kicks in time. I am afraid of a man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. This wasn't just about martial arts technique. It was about the power of focused repetition to create capabilities that seem almost supernatural. You have a choice to make right now. You can continue living as you have been, scattering your attention across dozens of different things, achieving mediocre results in multiple areas, always feeling like you're not quite reaching your potential. Or you can choose the warrior path, the path of laser focus, the path that transforms ordinary ability into extraordinary achievement. The choice is yours, but understand this. The world doesn't need another person with scattered attention and diluted effort. The world needs warriors, people who understand that extraordinary results come from ordinary people who develop extraordinary focus. Focus. The world needs individuals who are willing to go deeper instead of wider, who choose mastery over mediocrity, who understand that true power comes not from being exceptional at everything, but from being completely focused on the right things. Your time is limited. Your attention is finite. Your energy is precious. How you choose to focus these resources will determine not just what you achieve, but who you become. The successful warrior is the ordinary man with laser focus, and that warrior could be you. Who? You. The only question is, are you ready to begin? Remember, you don't need permission to start this journey. You don't need special credentials or unique talents or perfect circumstances. You just need the courage to choose focus over distraction, depth over breadth, purpose, pleasure, depth over pleasure. You need the wisdom to understand that the path to extraordinary achievement doesn't require you to be extraordinary. It only requires you to focus extraordinarily well on becoming who you're capable of being. Be like water, my friend, but be water flowing with purpose, with direction, with unstoppable focus toward your chosen destination. The ordinary man with laser focus becomes the successful warrior. The time to begin is now. I need you to pay close attention to what I'm about to share, as it might be the most crucial insight you'll ever encounter about achieving success. Not about fortune, not about having the right acquaintances, or being born into privilege. I'm referring to something far more potent, something that every individual listening to this already has, but most will never harness. You see, people often have a misguided notion about what makes someone successful. They believe you need to be special, gifted, or somehow chosen. They observe high achievers and assume there's something inherently different about them, some hidden ingredient they were born with that ordinary people like you and me simply lack. But I'm here to tell you something that will completely shatter that illusion. I was having a conversation with a student yesterday, a young man frustrated with his progress, constantly comparing himself to others, always feeling like he was lagging. He said to me, "Master Li, I'm just ordinary. I'm just ordinary. I'm not like you. I don't have natural talent. I don't have what it takes." And in that moment, I realized he had stumbled upon the greatest truth about success, but he had it entirely backward. You see, he thought being ordinary was his weakness. But I told him something that changed his entire perspective, something I learned not in any fancy training hall or from any ancient master, but in a moment of brutal honesty about myself. The successful warrior is the ordinary man with unwavering focus. Let me say that again, because I want it to sink deep into your consciousness. The successful warrior is the ordinary man with unwavering focus. Right now, as you're listening to this, you might be thinking, but Bruce, you're not ordinary. You're exceptional. You became a global icon, a martial arts legend, a philosopher whose words still inspire millions. And you know what? You're absolutely right about one thing. I did become all of those things. But here's what you don't understand yet. Here's the secret that will change everything for you. I started as the most ordinary person you could imagine. I was a scrawny kid from Hong Kong who got into street fights not because I was tough, but because I was angry and lost. I wasn't the strongest in my class. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't even the most naturally gifted when I first started training. In fact, my early teachers were more frustrated with me than impressed. I would watch other students pick up techniques faster, execute forms more beautifully, demonstrate more natural ability in every single area. But there was one thing I did that set me apart from everyone else. One thing that would eventually transform me from an ordinary, angry young man into someone whose words you're listening to decades after my death. I learned to focus with the intensity of a laser beam cutting through steel. Not occasionally, not when I felt motivated, not when conditions were perfect, but with relentless, unwavering, almost obsessive focus every single day. Let me tell you about the moment this truth revealed itself to me. I was 19 years old, training in a small, cramped room above a restaurant in Seattle. The space was so small I could barely throw a proper kick without hitting the wall. The mirrors were cracked, the floor was uneven, and the whole place smelled like fried rice and disappointment. I was practicing the same basic punch I had thrown thousands of times before, the simple straight lead that would later become one of my signature techniques. But this day was different. This day was different. This day, instead of going through the motions like I had so many times before, I decided to focus completely on this one movement, not thinking about the advanced techniques I wanted to learn, not worrying about how I compared to other martial artists, not distracted by dreams of future success. Just this one punch, this one moment, this one breath. For 3 hours straight, I threw that same punch over and over and over again. But here's what made it different. Every single repetition had my complete attention. I felt the rotation of my shoulder, the snap of my wrist, the engagement of my core, the placement of my feet, the rhythm of my breathing. I wasn't just practicing a technique. I was forging a connection between my mind and body that would become unbreakable. When I finally stopped, something had changed. It wasn't just the punch that had improved, though it had. It wasn't just my technique that had evolved, though it had. evolved, though it had. It was my understanding of what focus could be. I realized that 3 hours of complete laser-like attention had accomplished more than months of distracted training. That night, I wrote in my journal something that would become a cornerstone of my philosophy. The difference between an ordinary man and a warrior is not strength, not speed, not size. The difference is focus. The warrior has learned to gather all of his energy, all of his attention, all of his being into a single point of concentration. Like sunlight, focused through a magnifying glass, ordinary energy becomes extraordinary power. Now, I want you to really understand what I mean by ordinary, because this word has been twisted and distorted in our society until it's become something shameful, something to run from. But ordinary isn't your enemy. Ordinary is your starting point. Ordinary means you have the same basic human equipment as everyone else. A brain capable of incredible things, a body that can adapt and strengthen, emotions that can fuel tremendous achievements. Think about it this way. Every single person you admire, every hero whose story inspires you, every champion whose victories you celebrate, they all started with the same basic human hardware. The same capacity for learning, the same ability to grow, the same potential for focus and dedication. What separated them wasn't some magical gift they were born with. What separated them was their willingness to take that ordinary foundation and apply extraordinary focus to it. I've studied the lives of great achievers across every field imaginable. Athletes, artists, scientists, entrepreneurs, spiritual teachers. And you know what I found? The most common thread isn't talent. It isn't luck. It isn't luck. It isn't connections or circumstances. It's the ability to focus intensely on their craft, their mission, their purpose, day after day after day, until that focus transforms them from ordinary into extraordinary. Let me share with you a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. When I first came to Hollywood, I met a young actor who was struggling to get any significant roles. He wasn't particularly handsome by Hollywood standards. He didn't have connections in the industry. And he certainly didn't have natural charisma that jumped off the screen. By every measure, he was completely ordinary in a town full of people trying to be stars. But there was something different about this man. While other actors were scattered in their efforts, taking any role they could get, studying whatever technique was popular at the moment, networking frantically at every party, this man had laser focus. He had identified exactly the type of character he wanted to portray, exactly the kind of stories he wanted to tell, exactly the skills he needed to develop. Every single day, for years, he focused completely on becoming the absolute best at this one specific type of performance. He turned down roles that didn't align with his vision. He studied only the techniques that served his specific goals. He networked only with people who could help him in this particular direction. While others scattered their energy in 100 different directions, he concentrated all of his power into one focused beam. 10 years later, he became one of the most successful actors of his generation in exactly the type of roles he had focused on. Not because he was naturally gifted, not because he got lucky, but because he understood that ordinary ability plus laser focus equals extraordinary results. This is the secret that most people never learn. They think success requires them to be exceptional at everything, so they scatter their energy across dozens of different pursuits. They want to be fit, so they try every workout trend. They want to be successful, so they chase every opportunity. They want to be popular, so they try to please everyone. And in trying to be everything to everyone, they become nothing to anyone. But the warrior understands something different. The warrior knows that extraordinary results come not from being exceptional at everything, but from being completely focused on the right things. Like water, finding the smallest crack in a rock, and through persistent pressure, eventually splitting it in half. Focused effort applied consistently over time can accomplish what scattered talent never could. Let me tell you about the three enemies of focus that will try to sabotage your progress. Because if you're going to develop laser focus, you need to recognize these saboteurs when they appear. The first enemy is the comparison trap. This is the voice that constantly tells you to look around, to measure your progress against others, to worry about how you stack up. I spent years trapped in this prison, constantly comparing my abilities to other martial artists instead of focusing on my own development. The comparison trap destroys focus because it takes your attention away from your own path and scatters it across everyone else's journey. I remember training sessions where I would spend more energy watching other students than perfecting my own techniques. I would see someone execute a beautiful form and immediately start questioning my own abilities, wondering if I was training the right way, if I was good enough, if I was falling behind. Those were wasted hours, wasted energy, wasted focus that could be invested in my own growth. The moment I stopped comparing and started concentrating solely on becoming the best version of myself, everything changed. My technique improved dramatically, my confidence soared, and paradoxically, I started achieving the very recognition I had been chasing. I had been chasing through comparison. The second enemy is the shiny object syndrome. This is the constant temptation to abandon your current focus whenever something new and exciting appears. In our modern world, this enemy has become more powerful than ever. Every day, there's a new opportunity, a new trend, a new guru promising faster results through their revolutionary method. I see this destroying people's potential every single day. They start learning a skill, begin making progress, then suddenly switch to something else because it seems more promising. They begin a business venture, put in some effort, then abandon it for the next big opportunity. They commit to a training program, start seeing results, then jump to a different approach because it looks more exciting. But here's what they don't understand. Mastery isn't found in the accumulation of many different experiences. Mastery is found in the deepening of focus on fewer things. The warrior who masters one technique completely is infinitely more powerful than the dilettante who knows 100 techniques superficially. The third enemy, and perhaps the most insidious, is the instant gratification demon. This is the part of your mind that demands immediate results, that gets frustrated when progress feels slow, that wants to quit whenever the journey becomes difficult. In our age of instant everything, this enemy has grown stronger and more dangerous. I want to tell you something that might be hard to hear, but is absolutely essential to understand. Anything worth achieving takes time. The path of focused development isn't a smooth highway. It's a mountain trail with steep climbs, rocky terrain, and moments where you can't see the summit. But here's what I discovered through years of training and teaching. The difficulty isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature. The challenges, the plateaus, the moments of frustration, they're not obstacles to your development. They're the very mechanisms through which development occurs. Every time you want to quit but choose to continue, every time you feel frustrated but maintain your focus, every time you push through when progress feels impossible, you're not just improving your skills, you're forging the kind of character that makes extraordinary achievement inevitable. Inevitable. Now, let me share with you the specific techniques I developed for cultivating laser focus, the practices that transformed me from an ordinary young man into someone capable of extraordinary achievement. These aren't theoretical concepts or philosophical ideas. These are practical tools that I used every single day, tools that you can begin implementing immediately. The first technique is what I call the single point concentration method. Every morning before I did anything else, I would select one specific aspect of my training to focus on completely for that day. Not 10 things, not 5 things, not even 3 things. One thing. And for that entire training session, every ounce of my attention would be directed toward that single element. If it was footwork day, I wouldn't allow myself to think about punching technique or grappling or philosophy. Just footwork. If it was speed day, I wouldn't concern myself with power or accuracy or form. Just speed. This might seem limiting, but it's actually incredibly liberating. When you give yourself permission to ignore everything except one thing, you can dive deeper into that one thing than you ever thought possible. I want you to try this right now with whatever you're working on in your life. If you're building a business, choose one aspect to focus on today. If you're learning a skill, select one component to concentrate on completely. If you're trying to improve your health, pick one habit to give your full attention. Don't try to improve everything at once. Choose one thing and focus on it like your life depends on it. The second technique is the progressive depth method. This is where you take your chosen focus area and go deeper into it than anyone else is willing to go. Most people practice until they achieve basic competency, then move on to something else. But the warrior practices until they achieve a level of mastery that seems almost supernatural to outside observers. Let me give you a concrete example. When I was developing my famous 1-inch punch, I didn't just practice until I could perform the technique adequately. I practiced until I understood every micro movement involved, until I could generate maximum power from the smallest possible distance, until the technique became an extension of my very being. I spent hundreds of hours analyzing just the moment of impact. How my fist connected with the target, how energy transferred through my body, how my breath synchronized with the movement, how my mental state affected the power generation. Most people would have been satisfied with a punch that looked impressive. Ha! But I kept going deeper until I discovered principles that applied far beyond martial arts, principles about focus and energy and human potential that changed everything. The third technique is the distraction elimination protocol. Focus isn't just about what you choose to concentrate on, it's equally about what you choose to ignore. In our modern world, we are constantly bombarded with distractions, interruptions, and demands for our attention. The warrior must become ruthless about protecting their focus from these invasions.